I'm Jeana Locke, and I'm here to talk about loving yourself through your human design. And I am appreciative of being on this summit because I believe human design is a great way to blend with all of these other modalities that are there to help you understand how to pick the ones that you need to pick, how to make those choices and decisions, and even how to understand why some work for you and some will not work for you. So human design is sort of a blueprint of what is totally about you that is your uniqueness and why you have a unique being of who you are. And a little bit about me. I come to you from the great state of Texas. I am a person who has worked very hard. I've been in education most of my life, 30 years, and left that a few years ago and had some stuff happen in my life, which I'm going to share. So I have a PhD in Applied Behavioral Studies and Education, a master's in education, and secondary education teaching and career counseling. I'm certified in vocational and career teaching, certified in vocational and career counseling. I have extensive experience with career and life assessments. I taught graduate and postgraduate level counseling, appraisals, assessments, and capstones classes, along with many, many psychology classes. I've taught at the college level, the high school level, the mid-high level, the adult level. I've taught in all categories. I'm a certified human design specialist and a certified human design practitioner, which means I have certifications in EFT tapping, human design, and utilizing of the resiliency keys to help people move through from being stuck into thriving. I'm a certified emotion code practitioner and a certified Akashic Records reader. So why am I coming to you to talk to you about why human design is the key to helping you get through menopause? So I'm going to tell the story of how I had it happen to me and how I went through menopause and what occurred in my life and why it was going on and why you should love yourself. There's a really big reason to learn to love yourself, and I didn't love me. And why is loving yourself more important even when you're in menopause? And I'm going to talk about that and how human design can help you love yourself again, just like you did when you were a child. And just like you wish children would love themselves when they get older and you want them to, human design can help you do that. So you've heard all those pieces of paper, and I have credentials after credentials after credentials, and they're pieces of papers. But life had been really hard, physically and emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Finances were so difficult. All the pieces of my life were in shambles at the age of 53. I was really struggling. And it had started at age 58 to going into a very, very tough time. And it was a really frustrating thing because I felt like a complete failure. I had all these things. I had everything but those Eastern modalities at that point. I had all these other pieces of papers. And I thought when I was 40 and I completed my doctorate that everything was going to be okay. But it wasn't. And it's not that I wasn't supposed to have done those things, but I can tell you that I was guided that is not all there was to it. So I won all these awards. I did everything you could get. I put programs together. I did innovations that people had never heard of. I created things that hadn't even existed before. I created early college, high school technical programs and technical academies where students completed high school and their community college certificate with automatic addition to go into a senior college and finish the next 2 years with complete scholarships. My program developments were there to help every student who had any kind of economic disadvantage have an opportunity to be whatever they wanted to be. I dreamed of having every student have the equity and the equality to be able to have a difference in their life. I wanted to thrive in life, and I wanted everyone else, but in my own eyes, I was a failure. If one more person had asked me during this time why I was what was going on in my life, I just didn't know what else to say. I really just wanted to die. So here's what happened. I had gone through and I had been working in all these different jobs and I had these opportunities. I'd gone to take care of my grandmother and live close to her during her last years. And then I met a guy and we dated a long time and we got married. But from the age of 53 on, things were just hard. Everything was hard. Money was hard. Housing was hard. Everything about it was hard. Nothing came easily. And no matter how hard I worked or how hard I tried, nothing would flow. So what I did was I really couldn't understand what was happening. By the time I was 58, this really nice guy that I'd been dating convinced me that we ought to get married and move to the same state. So we did. And as we did that, I moved to this new state. So I left this great job I had, and I moved to a new state and started applying on jobs. I won awards. I had all these degrees. I had all the pieces of papers. Someone would hire me. No one interviewed me. No one interviewed me. No one hired me. Once in a while, I'd get an interview, and then they'd say, you're going to have to pay you too much. Oh, you have a doctorate, you'll leave. No one would even let me have an opportunity to come in and do it. I felt like the biggest failure, and nothing I did was right. So nothing was working. So how did human design help me, and what happened there? Well, first, the other part of that was I'd been having a lot of health issues. So I'd had weight fluctuations that were terrible. I had cancer scares that came up. I had all kinds of challenges come up with my complexion. I had issues come up on whatever I did on exercise. I just had a terrible time getting anything to work. And always before, if I exercised, I ate very, very healthy. I was one of those really great people about doing all the right stuff. I went to bed on time, but I couldn't rest. I was just in the depths of wishing life would stop. Hormones were just all over the place. Nothing would go right. And it was just terrible. It had been, all of my life had been an uphill challenge, but when I hit 53, it was worth, and when I hit 58, it got much more difficult. Nothing I was doing was working, and I really needed to stop and figure this out, that I wasn't paying any attention, and I was going to do it my way and push my way through it. So 2017 came along, and I'm age 60 years old, and I'm struggling in every component of my life, in every part. And I had a near-death experience. I'm on the interstate driving, and I'm by myself. I'd driven and started raining, and my car hydroplaned underneath the semi, and it turned 2 or 3 times at least under the semi, rotated, and all at once, I knew what was happening. I could feel it. I could see the wheels. I could feel the spin, and I knew something was in the car with me, my guides, my angels, whatever you want to call it. Took my hands off of the wheel. All of a sudden, my car is in front of the semi on dry pavement. And I am going right along. And I am totally like, oh my gosh, I should be dead. Am I even alive? And then all at once I realized I was, and I started crying. I was so upset. And about 2 minutes later, lights behind me, highway patrol lights and the siren going off. And I pull over, and the highway patrolman walks up and walks around my car and walks around my car and walks around my car. And I'm trying to hand him my identifications. And he says, go get in my car. And he's all freaked. And I sit in his car, and he goes, there's not a scratch on your car. I have a camera watching your car go under semi and spin and spin and spin. And then it was gone. And then you were in front. And I want to know who you are and what is this? They spent a lot of time, at least 20 minutes, going on and on about this whole situation. There were other things that occurred that same time, of other cars almost hitting us and then disappearing. And he was completely freaked. But all at once, I knew it was real. I had had a near-death experience, and God had stopped it. And I had some other reason I was supposed to be here. So I had to stop. After I was finally, he let me leave. He gave me a ticket to say he had discussed safety with me, because he couldn't give me a ticket for anything else. It was just a safety thing. So I had, all my life had been all about Western science, doing all that stuff, all the education, and doing every component of it. Yeah, I knew things were missing. I read all the books. I read all kinds of stuff that was interesting, but I hadn't ever lived it or walked it. And even at this time, I still felt like I was a failure, even with all those degrees. And that experience made me realize I had to go do it differently, do life differently. And I had to do something completely different. So I started looking at it and exploring. After I got home, got calmed down, I immediately started exploring some Eastern modality stuff. I took a few little things. I read some more books. I tried to go on and watch lots of YouTubes. I tried all this stuff. I'm doing it. Some worked, some didn't. Some that helped me feel better for a little while, but not very long. I wrote a vision book. I did all of these things. I put everything together. And then in 2018, I happened upon human design. And I explored it a little bit. It was so complicated. It was so challenging. And I just refused to pay for a human design reading from a certified specialist because they were expensive. And to me, they were expensive. And I didn't have any money. I was already struggling financially and I wasn't going to do it. And I knew I wasn't going to go to these one of the people who were sort of the fly-by-nights who didn't have any certifications and didn't know much. You could tell the difference when you heard them on YouTube. Anyway, I needed a real reading from someone who really understood human design, but I wasn't willing to put out the money. And that's what I told myself, that I didn't think I was worth it. So instead, I spent money on having 25 motion code and body code sessions, which made a huge difference in my life. And from that, I was able to release a lot of trapped emotions and let myself go and be able to look at my life differently. And that helped a great deal. I think it was very helpful. And then I was able to pull myself out of that really low spot and recognize that what I needed to do was more than this. I became certified in emotion code, thrillingly and glad I did it. Yet I was still just surviving. I wasn't thriving yet. So I started to get healthier. My body was getting healthier. My body was getting in better shape. I felt better. I began to believe in me. And I really, really, really wanted to thrive. Here I am, 61 years old, and I'm still struggling to find my place in life and my purpose. So in 2019, I attended a retreat in New Mexico. And I had been pushed by my angels and guides to pay for this retreat. It was so expensive in my eyes then. And I had never spent that kind of money on myself for anything. I did not do self-care in the cost of like even paying for anything. I did everything myself. I gave my own pedicures. I did my own stuff. I washed my own car. I really just could not handle the concept of spending much money. My angels pushed me really hard to do this program. And so I went to New Mexico on this retreat for 5 days with these 12 women. And at that retreat, I had met an extraordinary soul, and her name was Karen Curry Parker. She teaches human design. She teaches human design certifications for quantum. But she doesn't do readings for other people unless she happens to be at a retreat that you're at. And then you can get a reading. And I was at that retreat for 5 days, and she did a reading for me that lasted over 90 minutes, close to 2 hours. And it changed my life. I understood. Now I knew why I was pushed to be at this retreat. I understood why I needed to be here. From that reading alone, I understood and appreciated how unique I was. I never had felt special or unique in my entire life. Not once. I had just felt like I needed to do what society said to do. I would make me successful if I just did what society said to do. And all at once I felt so unique and so appreciative of who I was. It showed me how I could connect with that uniqueness and become more. And actually utilize that uniqueness to feel good about myself again. And I realize right now that it was like a big puzzle on the board, and I didn't have any of the puzzle pieces put together, and part of the puzzle pieces weren't even out. And part of those puzzle pieces were things about human design that made a difference. Those puzzle pieces that she gave me, that she put on the board, and all at once I could see them and how they might fit in my life, gave me hope. They gave me hope that there was something about me, that people could love me and that I could love me. And I had never felt that kind of love. I hadn't experienced love in my life. I hadn't experienced love from my family much. I had very difficult marriages, and I didn't feel like anybody really loved me. So the journey to human design started, and I started experimenting with some of these pieces that she gave me. And then I wanted more and I wanted more. And each time I'd put a piece out there, I'd experiment with a piece of that human design, I'd all of a sudden realize just how unique and special I was. And then I was exactly how I was supposed to be. And everything I had been fighting about myself, I should have been embracing. I wanted more, and I wanted my blueprint. So I found myself taking each piece of human design one at a time. And I quit allowing the opinions of others to stop me. And I started looking at who I was and why I was here, what I offered, and how some people just didn't want me to shine, and they were going to make sure they kept me in a lower hole. So the gift of my human design from Karen Curry Parker that day helped me open the door to treating myself with love. She opened the door for me being non-judgmental to myself. How many of us judge ourselves constantly? She helped me have an understanding of valuing aspects to me that came naturally. I understood pieces of me that I'm going to talk about in a minute that I thought were terrible pieces that actually are very natural and wonderful pieces, and they're needed in this world. I now know how to make choices for myself, and I don't second guess myself. I learned my decision-making authority, and I understood how to use it. And when I started using it, oh my gosh, every one of those decisions would just click. It would be like, oh, that was the right way to do it. Oh, you don't have to worry about that. And it became wonderful. I started feeling the Creator being with me all the time. Now, I didn't change immediately after that reading. It took me a while to absorb all the information she'd given, and it took me months to have the courage to start. So there's something about me you should know. In human design terms, I am what is called a manifesting generator. And manifesting generators are busy, 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 busy. They are constantly they have lots of ideas. They have lots of things that show up in their life that come up. And they have an ability to multiple task. So all my life, that had not been happening very well for me. I did all those things, but I got in trouble for it. I was constantly criticized for being too busy. I was constantly criticized for being able to multiple task and get it done. I was constantly told about how awful it was that I couldn't sit down and watch a television show, that maybe I should just learn how to relax a little. But manifesting generators are going to be busy. They're going to be watching a television show and doing the laundry, and probably reading a book at the same time almost, or they're going to be doing handwork, or they're going to be doing something. They may be exercising. Manifesting generators do not sit still very long, and they have a really tough time doing that. And when they do, they don't feel good. So all the things I've been criticized for all my life were really attributes of who I was. And I started liking me. The other part of that, my profile, was a 3-6. And that 3-6 was so important because a 3 means you explore and experiment. I had always explored and experimented, and I had taken that to new horizons. And I was a 6, which means during my first third of the life, I explored and experimented, so double 3. Then I watched and observed, and then I was to teach and show others how to use all that information, which I had been doing through all of my teaching and all of the components I had done. So as I experimented with my type, manifesting generator, and started living as a manifesting generator, I quit worrying about being busy. I quit worrying about doing 4 things at the same time. I didn't try to hide the fact that I could do that. I didn't hide my multiple tasking anymore. I didn't pretend I was something I wasn't. I didn't pretend that I was a generator who just does one thing at a time. I didn't pretend that I was a projector who had this knowingness of others. I didn't pretend I was a manifester who had this ability to start manifesting things. And I didn't pretend I was a reflector who sees what the world is like and reflects it back. I really got it that I was a manifesting generator. And I started liking me. Because all at once, when somebody read it to me, and she didn't know anything about me when she met me, she didn't know my lifestyle or the way I worked or the way I did things. She described me to a T in that reading. She described me to a T. She dotted every I, she crossed every T, and she told me about the me I knew that existed and how perfect it was and why. And it was so helpful. I found within a couple of weeks of starting learning to use my manifesting generator stuff and living with it, I needed to use my authority, which was how I made decisions. And the part on how I make decisions is there are 7 decision-making processes in human design. I happen to have a sacral decision-making process. Once I learned how to use that, it was a dream. I knew how to make a decision. I could move forward. I could process it, and I didn't second guess myself anymore. So I added those other layers each single time. And then I added another layer about my profile, which was the 3-6. And all of a sudden, it would be like when somebody would say to me, gosh, Jeana, why do you always have to go try something new? How come you have to read that many books? Do you actually have to do all of that? Why do you have to explore this many different modalities? Why do you have to teach from this many angles? When I got ready to do that, I realized with my 3, I started saying to people, you know, I'm a 3-6 and it is fine. And I quit letting their judgment of me that was bad determine how I felt about myself. So as a 3-6, I also stopped judging others who didn't do those things. I started recognizing the value of a 1 profile, which is an investigator. We need investigators. We need people to investigate all of these components of all of these topics and ensure that it's accurate. We need 2s. 2s are integrative. They get information and they take it in, they integrate it. And when somebody asks them, they share it and give it back at the right time for that person. A 3 is going to explore and experiment. That's me. A 4 is a community builder. And it comes to them so naturally. They don't even realize, why is it so hard for a 3 to build community? It's so easy for me. I just see it and I know exactly what to do or say. A 5 is a karmic mirror to the world. And a 6 is that role model teacher that they come about. So there are more things about it that are layers to human design. So when that comes up, all of that helped me start seeing me as the way I was designed by this chart that I could see. And when I was told and explained, and all at once I started liking me. And then I started loving me and I stopped judging me. So why is human design even more important in menopause? Because when we all get between 38 and 41, which is when menopause and premenopausal stuff will start, we're going to have what's called a Uranus opposition. And a Uranus opposition is what society calls the midlife crisis. But it's a little more detailed in human design. And human design is going to show you just the kind of obstacles that will show up for you and what you can do to help go through that time in a more seamless and smooth manner. And it ended for me when I was at 40. I finished my doctorate. And I thought everything would be so easy once I finished that PhD. There was no way that anything could go wrong. But I didn't know human design then. And if I had, I probably would have handled it a lot differently. And of course, even back then, human design was so new. It had only been developed a few years, and there wasn't even books about it at that point. So now that you know why, if you aren't loving yourself, you're going to get sick. You're going to have crisis in your careers. You're going to have crisis in your jobs, in your families, with your children. And you're going to have those crises just show up more and more because you're not living the true you of who you are. And if you can't love you, how can they love you? So recognizing those values and those things about yourself and how that menopause time, that midlife crisis time can really be a kick, because you're going to get some kicks in the bottom, kicks in the butt, so to speak, to go become the true you. And if you don't do it, they're going to start kicking more and more and more. When you get to be 53, it's going to kick you really hard if you haven't started living the truth to who you are. So as you say that, so how can it help you love the real you? It helped me understand I was a manifesting generator. It helped me understand I was a 3 and I was going to experiment and I was going to try all these things. I'm going to read a zillion books and I'm going to try different modalities and I'm going to do a whole bunch of different exercising and I'm going to try different, whatever it may be, because that's what I am. So it's okay once you understand who you are to have a little bit better perspective of why you feel the way you do. And it's okay to feel that way because you were designed to. There's nothing wrong with you. And you may have had a parent tell you, what's wrong with you? I did. You may have had teachers say, what's wrong with you? I did. You may have different things show up in your life, and all at once you can start loving you. So I'm just going to open up for one moment and show you some slides here. This is what we've already gone through. So I wanted to explain that human design, your soul is like a franchise of a movie series. You're the actor or the actress in the franchise in each of the movies. And as the actor or the actresses, you may be a female in one movie and in that lifetime and a male in another lifetime. Yet you still recognize the soul of who you are. That soul is coming back, and each incarnation is going to have a different set of lessons we go through. Human design shows us how those all connect. And this particular lifetime, as an actor or an actress in the movie, your type is the role you play. For me, that's a manifesting generator. Then each lifetime is a different movie of the franchise. So I may be a manifesting generator this time, I may be a projector next time. Each one, so let's think of something like Star Wars, where there's a bunch of different movies. There's a whole franchise of them. They have distinct standardization between them. And afterwards, everything that in a movie is related to you is based on a different plot. But it's still a part of the movie franchises that they build upon. So this whole thing about the different ways that we look at each other, it helps you grow. The actor or the actress in the movie for this incarnation, you're growing and learning skills for each movie, but there's some consistencies between each of the movies throughout the whole different soul's experience. And your experiences are expanding with each incarnation. So you have a different type, a different theme, a different strategy, a different profile, and a different cross of incarnation. Cross of incarnation is your life purpose for this particular incarnation. The essence of understanding your unique human design is to reawaken you to your true self. So this are what human design charts look like. This is one that's blank, and every human design chart is just completely these different numbers are all in the same places. The squares are triangles or hearts, the shapes are all, and they are different colors. And each of these different ones represents a different type. And there are 64 gates. And so you have an option of having a lot. There's no way any of us are going to look the same. We're all going to be in different time zones and different birth dates and different years. And each of those minutes that we are born on changes the way the planets impact us. So on here, you can see where the sun is there, and the sun gives you what gate, which is the I Ching gate that you were born in, and that will show up as a color on your chart. When there is a complete 2 gates, it makes a channel, then there are the center becomes colored, and it becomes a defined center. And this is what helps determine if you're a manifesting generator, if you're a projector, a generator, a manifester, or a reflector. And on here, a reflector is going to have, they're going to have some colors, and I'll show you those. But a manifesting generator is going to have a throat and a sacral define that are connected in some way. And they're going to have, in a generator, they might have the sacral is colored, but not necessarily anything else. Maybe it'll be something different. And then you'll stop and look at how a reflector looks. Reflectors usually have a lot of openness on them. They have a lot of white, and they take in everyone else's energy instinctively. And then here's a manifester, and the manifestors just have this way of manifesting. They have a way of knowing, and their throat is very defined, and it comes through and does a lot. And a reflector has all white centers when they do it. So every chart has, it looks like, how can I ever understand that chart? And that's why a professional human design reader can help you understand it. Projectors, 20% of our population. Some people say they feel very bitter when they're in a low vibe, and they feel very integrated and successful when they're in a high vibe. For them, their strategy for decision making is to wait to be recognized and invited. So that's their strategy of doing things. And for them, they have a bunch of different ways of decision making that they can use based upon whatever authority they have. The generator, 37% of the population, most people are generators in the world. Your highest chances of being a generator are good, and it's an awesome thing to be. Generators are very, very much, they are the workhorses in our world. Without them, we wouldn't get anything done. They also have the ability to stay with it, stay with it, stay with it, stay with it. And they get one task done, and they get their mastery of that one task is extraordinary, awesome. When they're frustrated, they're in a low vibe, and they are in a high vibe when they feel successful and they have rhythm to what they're doing. Their strategy is they need to wait to show up for what shows up in their reality. Their manifestors are only 8% of them, and when they're in a low vibe, they're going to be sort of angry feeling. And they're empowered when they're in a high vibe. And before they make actions, they should inform and then them to go forth with their action. A manifestation generator, that's me, and this is my chart, is 32% of the population or thereabouts. We have frustration and anger when we're in a low vibe. Did you hear me talk about how frustrated and angry I was when I was in those other? And many people call us obstinate. We have a very much of a dynamic feeling when things are working for us. We're going to feel satisfied. We're going to have this dynamic feeling. It'll be very strong. We are to respond to what shows up in our reality and our environment. Then we are to envision it, inform, and act. We ask our sacral what we need to do, but we need to be able to do that. We have a lot of sacral response for us when we are in that part. I teach a lot about how to use your sacral energy. Reflectors have all these open centers. They feel everybody's energy, they magnify it, and they reflect it back to the world. They feel very disappointed when life's not going well. When it's going well, they embrace everything. And they utilize to make their decisions on working through the lunar moon cycles that go through. I mentioned to you that I was a 3/6, and I just wanted to share, you might want to screenshot this if you can, that the different profiles are big things. That is how you do in the world. That's how you do things. So for me, I explored and experimented, and then I was a role model and teacher of what I learned. And that was exactly what I showed up in the world. If other people had said that to me, they would have said, I tried new things. And I was a big explorer of education in a way. I turned it upside down. If you have a 1, you're an investigator. You research, and you have to give yourself permission to stop researching. If you're a 2, that you integrate it, and you just hold it until somebody asks you. And sometimes you need to say, somebody needs to ask me how to do this. But integrators they take this information in and they integrate all of the pieces together. Explorer and experimenters, that's me. That is, you literally explore and experiment, and every single 3 always feels like a failure. They have felt like they've been a failure, and society will often tell them they've been a failure. 4s are community builders. They are our people who can build any community and help it thrive. They're wonderful at helping people make connections with each other. Now, 5s are karmic mirrors, and there's a lot of projection about that. And when people meet a 5, they have a feeling of what this is, that they can see themselves within that person. The 6s are role models and teachers of what you learn. So I'm a 3/6. So I'm an explorer, experimenter, and role model teacher. So when you see your numbers on your human design chart, that's what those different things mean. The cross of incarnation is another thing that shows up on your chart when you see it. And there are 192 different crosses of incarnations, and they provide you guidance about your life purpose. So if you decide to have a human design reading, one of the things you need to talk about and let me know is if you want this purpose. Because I usually do that in an advanced reading, but for this group, I'm more than happy to share it in the basic readings. The cross of incarnation is the cross of consciousness. People cross my path. For me, that's me. I am the cross of consciousness. People cross my path when they need to understand how their life experiences connects with reasonable and sound solutions and ideas. So people come to me when they're needing to connect the past idea, past things, and their life things that have happened with ways for solutions for the future. And literally, that's why my clients come to me. They may stay with me a long time for some of them, and some of them will move on just depending upon if they're in the same interest area I am. But it helps them grow and helps them become it next. And the best way to start looking at this is to quit talking about it and doing it. So I talked about human design for a long time, and I didn't start the certification process for another 2 or 3 years. And once I started, I couldn't stop. Once I started and started understanding all the components of it, it became awesome. You don't need the certification, but to have a professional human design reading, I wasted so much time those first 2 years waiting to get that professional reading, because if I had had that done and I had actually gone through, I would have moved much further along. And had those 2 years were really, really tough years. I went through a lot of different emotion releases that would have been much smoother if I'd understood my human design. Just understanding my human design would have helped me let go of things that I was holding on to from my past. I really believe that. So why should you love yourself? Because your body's going to tell you. If you're not, your life's going to start showing up in many ways. That's going to have it feel in your career. You're going to feel unsatisfied. You're going to feel bitter. You're going to feel frustrated and angry. And why is loving yourself more important when you hit menopause? Because you hit these stages that the Creator have given us. That's called Uranus opposition or midlife crisis at 40-ish. And then you hit another at between 48 to 53. You'll hit it again. And you're just going to get pushed to start loving yourself. Because that's the whole point of the Creator, is for you to love yourself. And human design can literally tell you who you are without anybody having ever met you. If all at once, somebody's going to be on the other side of that and explain to you who you are and why you are, and give you an idea of ways that you can actually show yourself how you love and to be able to love those around you. I literally loved my husband more after I understood his design. I loved my friends more after I understood their human design. I no longer thought they were strange and weird. And all of a sudden it became magical to recognize my projector, my best friend who's a 4/6 and a projector, and what she brings to my life. And yes, she has her days that are ups and downs just like I do. But what she brings is wonderful, and she's a 4/6. And she's that community building, and then that whole role model. And as a projector, she knows that she knows, and she can give me guidance that I couldn't give myself, because that's what she does. So as you look at that, there's a couple of ways to get a hold of me. But it's really important for you to stop and recognize that as you do this, you are lovable. And your human design can help you see why it's okay, and that you were actually designed to be exactly that. That near-death experience, it turned me upside down. And I spent another 2.5 years before I had a human design reading to understand that I had the opportunity to move forward and do what I'm supposed to do in this life. And, I've tried all of these things, and yet the more meanings that I have given in life have been far through helping people understand who they are and how to love themselves, how to embrace who they are, help you recognize the real authentic you, and the one that yearns to be yearns to be valued and loved, to show you how to live in alignment with who you are instead of fighting it, because I fought it for way too many years. Don't wait till you're 60 to start embracing who you really are. It's far too long, and it is a really tough thing. Life's still going to throw you curveballs after all of that. You're still going to have stuff happen that you aren't going to like. But what does happen is you know how to deal with it. You know how to make those decisions, and you know how to express those emotions in a way that will help you. And once you understand your human design, you actually connect better with your other modalities. I still use Reiki all the time. I use emotion code daily. I use body code daily. I use different types of movement. I know that as a manifesting generator, I do better in a walking meditations than I will laying down. My projector friend, my 4/6 projector, she lays down for all of her meditations because she's a projector. She needs to lay down and release. I need to walk and move. It'll help you understand why it works for you and it didn't work for somebody else, and why you have to change it up at times and what goes on it. So as you get through that and you look at all these wonderful sessions that are going to be here today, try to stop and think, how would human design help me know which way I could go and do the best? And there will be a free drawing that is a gift from Sona to be able to do this whole thing. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. My email's there, my website, all that information, and I'm happy to provide that to you. And oh yes, there's a free gift of the free human design chart. So everybody that wants one, I'll get a free human design chart to you and send it to you personally with a personal note from the email. And if you'll just make a note from the summit on it when you say referred, the word summit will help me know who from, and I'll be happy to ensure that I give you a little extra in that email so you'll know more about yourself. Thank you for allowing me to be here today, and have a blessed day. Thank you.